So we're going to go through the next 3 comma rules. These are a little bit less common of rules, but I have still seen these on the AP test. And so they're a little bit like harder to explain if you don't know the parts of speech really well, but we're going to try. So the rule number 7 is that you use commas to set aside non-essential participial phrases. Participial phrase. Have you heard that phrase before? Heard that word? Okay. So a participial phrase is basically a verb phrase or a verb phrase. So a participle is the verb. Participle is a verb phrase that acts as an adjective in the sentence. So it's not the main action of the sentence, and instead it is describing the subject. Something like this: exhausted, Sally took a nap. So this word, exhausted, to be exhausted is usually acts as a verb, but in this case, exhausted is describing Sally. It's acting as an adjective, and so it's called a participle. This one's just a participle, not phrase, because there's not more than one. So the way to find participial phrases is if the word ends in ed or ing, and it is describing the subject. So another one might be like having, one over here that I can use, there we go. Having been a runner all his life, Charles knew the importance of exercise. So this having been a runner his whole life is a verb phrase, but in this case it is describing Charles, and so we know that it's a participial phrase. And again, the way that we can find participle phrases is if they are end in ed or ing, and they're describing something, or something in the subject line. All right, now what's tricky about this too is that some participial phrase is necessary to the meaning of the sentence. So something like this: the dog running up to the boy is friendly. If the participial phrase is in the middle of the sentence, that's when you have to decide if it's necessary. And in this case, it probably is. It sounds like you are trying to distinguish that it is the dog running up to the boy that is friendly, because maybe there's a dog over there that is not friendly. So you wouldn't use commas with this. But usually participial phrases are at the beginning or the ends of sentences. And if they are, you have to set them aside with commas. And you can think of this also as, is this information absolutely necessary for the sentence? If you were to erase that, you would still get the idea. Sally took a nap. That's still the main idea of the sentence. Okay, that's rule number 7. Rule number 8 is that you set aside coordinated contrasting elements. So this is when an author says something, a writer says something, but then they want to clarify the thing and add just a little bit more information. So something like the students were nervous, comma, yet hopeful. Here at the end, it's not a complete sentence. It's not any of the other rules that it fits into. It's its own little rule about coordinating contrasting elements. Basically, you're saying one thing, but then you want to clarify it just a little bit further. So something like, Marion wrote slowly, but carefully. And they're coordinated because they're kind of even here. Does that make sense? I like books, not movies, something that I'm clarifying there. I actually don't think that would be one. Don't pay no attention to that one. All right, number 9. Okay, this one's also a little bit difficult. So adverbial. Adverbial infinitive phrases at the beginning or middle of your sentence. You need to set these kinds of phrases aside with commas. So for example, if you were like to say, to be honest, I love you. You know it's an infinitive phrase if you use the to form of the verb. To be, to let's see, I have another one. To win, you need to be prepared. And if you use that at the beginning of the sentence, which is the only place that I've really seen it on the ACT, then you need to set it aside with commas. So on Instagram, when people do those, like, these things, as the English teacher in me, always gets so frustrated. I'm like, you need a comma. What are you doing? But anyway, so to be honest, and then you'd have the thing that you're being honest about. That's an adverbial infinitive. These are both for me. Yeah. Sure, obviously. No, sir. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so I have seen these tested on the ACT. I've actually seen rule number 9 tested explicitly, where they like are asking you specifically about this thing. But I would say most often the ways that these are tested is that they'll have something that doesn't quite work as an option, and it's one of the ways that you can rule out an option in the ABC portion of the, in the options, like to each question. So it's helpful to know all of the different rules. So I'm going to have you go now to the sentences that are listed at the back. You one of these? I don't know. No problem. So go to the sentences that are listed at the back, and I'm going to have you do fixed sentences number 1 through 7 and fixed sentences 11 through 14. Some of them do not need any fixing, but if they need fixing, fix them.
Are we just doing all of them?
No, number 1 through 7 and then 11 through 14.